Some of the biggest breakthroughs in life don't come when you push harder. They come when you finally let go. You spend so much time worrying, planning, forcing things into place, only to feel more tired, more lost, and more disconnected from what you truly want. But what if the very thing you're chasing is trying to reach you, and it just can't find space to land because you're holding on too tightly? In the teachings of the Buddha, there's a profound truth. What we cling to holds us back, but what we release makes room for peace, clarity, and the quiet arrival of everything we truly deserve. Today's video isn't just another discussion about staying calm. It's a journey into the kind of calm that changes your entire life, the kind that comes from trust, from surrender, from aligning yourself with the natural rhythm of the universe instead of fighting against it. If you're feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, or constantly stuck in what's next, this message is for you. Because the moment you stop chasing is often the moment everything starts coming together. And if you find peace in the kind of content we share here, grounded in Buddhist wisdom and spoken with care, there's a small free favor I'll ask of you. Just hit the subscribe button. It lets us keep bringing more of this calm, thoughtful space directly to you. And don't skip any part of this video. Every section is connected and builds upon the last, like stepping stones toward a deeper kind of peace. Let's begin, not by doing more, but by learning how to let go, slow down, and trust that the universe is already moving everything into place for you. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that if we just try harder, push more, and never stop moving, everything we want will finally come to us. We're taught to hustle, to stay ahead, to make things happen by force. But often the more we chase, the more it all seems to slip through our fingers. That feeling of trying to hold on, to manage every detail, to push your energy into outcomes that aren't responding, it's exhausting. And deep down you start to sense that something isn't working, that maybe all this pressure isn't moving you forward, maybe it's keeping you stuck. In Buddhism, the Buddha teaches that the world doesn't respond to what we say we want. It responds to who we are being. That means your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, and your energy are all part of the signal you're constantly sending out to the universe. This is often described as your vibration. It's the invisible language you speak with your entire presence. And here's the part many people miss. The universe isn't reacting to your words or your efforts, it's reflecting your inner state. So, if your energy is full of fear, doubt, and stress, even if you're working hard, you're still vibrating from a place of lack. And that sends a message: I don't have what I need. The universe, being the mirror that it is, reflects that vibration back to you by giving you more things that reinforce scarcity, delay, and resistance. On the other hand, when your energy is steady, calm, and trusting, even if you're not taking constant action, you're telling the universe, I believe it's coming, I know I'm supported. And the universe responds to that energy by making space, opening doors, and drawing things toward you in ways you didn't expect. Think about it. When you meet someone who's calm, grounded, and confident in themselves, aren't you naturally drawn to them? You trust their energy. You feel safe in their presence. That's the same way the universe responds to us. It's not waiting for our panic, it's waiting for our peace. The Buddha often spoke about the importance of non-striving, not in the sense that we should be lazy or passive, but in the sense that we should move through life without clinging. When you cling too tightly to how things must go, you create friction. But when you let go and stay rooted in awareness, you begin to live in harmony with life, not in battle against it. It's also important to remember that desperate energy repels. Not because you're being punished, but because that energy is built on the belief that what you want is missing. And when you believe something is missing, your entire vibration changes. You start operating from anxiety, you try to control everything, and your actions become frantic. In Buddhism, this is the suffering caused by attachment, the suffering that comes when we believe happiness exists only in what we can grasp. But the Buddha reminds us, real peace isn't found in getting everything we want. It's found in how we relate to our desires. Are we clinging, or are we allowed? When you begin to trust, really trust, that the universe is working in harmony with your energy, not your pressure, you start to soften. You breathe deeper. You stop chasing. And ironically, this is when the shift happens. Suddenly things begin to flow. The people you were trying so hard to reach out to start reaching out to you. The opportunities you were obsessing over show up when you least expect them. It's not magic, it's alignment. It's the quiet reward of letting your energy speak louder than your effort. There's something very human about wanting to hold on tightly to the things we care about. We cling to our goals, our plans, the people we love, and the outcomes we think should happen. We believe that if we just grip hard enough, if we worry more, try harder, control everything, we'll be safe, we'll succeed. But life doesn't work that way, and neither does the mind. In fact, the more we hold on, the more tension we create inside ourselves. That tension doesn't lead to clarity, it leads to exhaustion, anxiety, and disappointment. The Buddha taught that clinging is one of the deepest roots of suffering, not because desire is wrong, but because our attachment to how things must be creates resistance against the natural flow of life. Think about it like this: if you hold sand in your open palm, it stays. But the tighter you close your hand around it, the more it slips through your fingers. Life is the same. When you try to force something to stay exactly as you want it, whether it's a relationship, a job, a timeline, or a dream, you unintentionally create pressure. And that pressure pushes away the very things you're trying to protect. It makes you rigid. It narrows your perspective. It blinds you to other possibilities that might be better suited for you at this moment. And what's worse, it makes you emotionally fragile, easily thrown off course when something doesn't go as planned. Buddhist philosophy invites us to soften that grip, to practice non-attachment, not in the sense of giving up or not caring, but in the sense of holding things with open hands and an open heart. The Buddha wasn't telling us to become indifferent. He was showing us how to engage with life fully, without being enslaved by our attachments. When we let go of the need to control every outcome, we begin to trust. And in that trust, we find a kind of peace that control can never give us. Letting go of control doesn't mean sitting back and doing nothing. It means doing your part and then surrendering the rest. You apply effort, yes, but not with desperation. You show up with presence, not panic. You set intentions, but you release expectations. This is the middle way. It's not about being passive, it's about being wise. It's about recognizing that everything is interconnected and that sometimes our forcefulness disrupts that natural connection. What we think is helpful, pressuring, worrying, forcing, is often what closes the door to the very peace and progress we seek. I've seen this in my own life more times than I can count. The moment I cling too tightly to a goal, obsessing over it, chasing it from a place of fear, it seems to slip further away. But when I stepped back, when I centered myself, returned to my breath and remembered the teachings, I softened, I found calm. And from that calm, doors opened again. Not because I pushed, but because I allowed space for life to move. We live in a culture that praises hustle and control, but the Buddha taught us a different kind of strength, the strength to let go, the strength to trust the unfolding. Because when we grip tightly, we not only block the flow of what's trying to reach us, we block our own inner peace. That peace is always available, but it requires space, it requires breath, it requires the willingness to open our hands and say, I trust life to meet me where I am. There's a moment, usually when everything finally goes quiet, where something deeper begins to speak. Not with words, not with thoughts, but with a kind of calm knowing. You're not solving anything, not trying to figure it all out. But suddenly you just understand that's the beauty of stillness. It's not empty, it's full of answers. But we don't often give ourselves permission to be still. The world rewards the loud, the fast, the productive. We feel guilty for resting, for pausing, for simply sitting with ourselves. Yet in Buddhist teaching, it is precisely in this space, this inner stillness, that wisdom awakens. The Buddha found his enlightenment not in movement but in stillness. He sat beneath the Bodhi tree, unmoving, while storms of illusion swirled around him. Mara came with fear, desire, doubt, but the Buddha didn't fight. He didn't run. He simply remained present. He observed, and in that deep stillness, he saw the nature of suffering, the truth of impermanence, and the path to liberation. That silence, that calm attention, is not passive. It's the birthplace of clarity. And we all have access to it if we learn to stop filling every moment with noise. In today's world, silence feels uncomfortable. The moment things go quiet, our mind jumps in with distractions, thoughts about the past, anxieties about the future, the need to do something. But Buddhist practice teaches us to stay, to breathe, to soften into the moment instead of escaping it. When we give ourselves to stillness, we begin to hear what the noise was hiding. We hear our intuition. We notice the subtle messages life has been trying to give us all along. The right decision becomes clearer. The next step no longer feels forced. It's as if the universe has been whispering to us the entire time, but we've been too loud to hear it. Stillness doesn't always mean sitting in meditation for hours. It can be found in small moments, a quiet morning before the world wakes up, a deep breath before responding to someone, a pause during your walk when you stop and listen to the wind in the trees. These are not just soft moments. They are sacred ones. They reconnect you to the part of yourself that doesn't need to prove anything, the part that already knows. The part the Buddha said is already whole, already wise, just clouded by distraction and desire. And here's what's beautiful. The more you lean into stillness, the more you realize it's not about doing nothing. It's about listening more deeply. You start to notice what energizes you and what drains you. You begin to feel what aligns and what doesn't. You make decisions not from panic but from peace. That's what Buddhist mindfulness is all about, returning to the present moment with open awareness, again and again, until the noise fades and the truth reveals itself gently. There was a time I used to rush decisions, act from pressure, fill every silence with overthinking. But the more I practiced being still, even just for a few minutes, the more my life began to shift. I felt clearer, calmer, less reactive, and I began to trust that I didn't have to chase answers. They would rise naturally from within when the mind was quiet enough to receive them. The Buddha once said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." That peace, that wisdom is always there. Stillness simply removes the layers that keep you from feeling it. We spend so much of our lives waiting for the right job, the right relationship, the right sign. We create timelines in our minds. By this age, I should be here. By next month, I should have this. And when things don't unfold the way we hoped, frustration sets in. We wonder if we've failed, if the universe has forgotten us, or if we're somehow being left behind. But in the teachings of the Buddha, we're reminded that life doesn't move according to our personal calendars. It flows in alignment with deeper truths, timing that isn't rushed or delayed, but perfectly tuned to what we're truly ready for. In Buddhism, this understanding comes from letting go of attachment, not just to things, but to expectations. Expectations are often disguised as control. We think we're being proactive, responsible, or goal-oriented, but what we're really doing is gripping tightly to how and when things should happen. And that grip creates tension, not just in the body, but in the heart. It makes us feel like something's always missing, like we're somehow behind in a race that no one else is running. But what if you're not behind at all? What if you're exactly where you're supposed to be, even if it doesn't look like what you expected. The universe doesn't operate on a clock. It operates on energy, and energy doesn't move according to your watch. It moves when conditions are ripe. Just as a tree cannot bloom before it's rooted, your desires will not manifest before you are truly ready to receive them. This isn't punishment, it's preparation. In Buddhist practice, we learn that the path is often more important than the destination. What you become in the waiting, how you grow in the silence, and who you are becoming right now, that is the journey. Sometimes what feels like delay is actually protection. You may think you're ready, but the universe knows what you still need to learn. The Buddha never rushed awakening. He meditated, waited, observed. He surrendered to the rhythm of life rather than forcing it. And in doing so, he awakened to truths that were always there, but only visible when the mind became still enough to see them. You're not being punished when things take longer. You're being invited to trust, to pause, to stay open, and there's also a kind of peace that blooms when you release your timeline. You stop measuring your worth by external progress. You stop comparing your journey to others, and you start living here, right here, in the moment. The breath becomes more than just air. It becomes a reminder that this present moment is the only place where life actually happens. The future is always uncertain, but this breath is real. This step, this silence. And when you root yourself in the now, you begin to trust the flow of time itself. Letting go of your timeline doesn't mean you stop dreaming or lose ambition. It means you stop suffering over things outside your control. You still plant the seeds, tend to them with care, and take aligned action. But you allow space. You let nature do what it does best, bloom when it's time. Some of your deepest desires may take longer, but they're also likely to arrive in ways you never imagined, ways you couldn't have planned for even if you tried. There's a quiet belief many of us carry deep down, often without even realizing it, that says, "I'm not enough." Maybe it started in childhood, maybe it came from years of criticism or rejection, or maybe it grew slowly over time through comparison and failure. And without knowing it, we start to live our lives through the lens of that belief. We settle for less. We stop asking for more. We second-guess opportunities. We fear happiness won't last, not because life has told us we're unworthy, but because somewhere along the way we started believing it. In Buddhist teachings, the mind is seen as the foundation of all experience. The Buddha taught, "With our thoughts, we make the world." That isn't just a poetic idea, it's a deep truth about how your inner beliefs shape your outer reality. If you carry the energy of lack, of unworthiness, of doubt, then that becomes the filter through which you interpret the world. You might see opportunities and convince yourself they're not meant for you. You might meet love and unconsciously push it away. You might have a dream and hesitate to take the first step because some part of you doesn't truly believe it's possible. But here's the most powerful truth. The universe doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to what you believe you deserve. It mirrors back the energy you carry within. If your energy says, "I'm worthy of peace, of success, of healthy love," then slowly but surely, life begins to open up. Doors you never expected start to appear. People who see your value show up. Choices feel clearer, and the path forward no longer feels like a battle. It feels like alignment. This is why so many spiritual paths, including Buddhism, begin not with changing the world, but with transforming the self. Buddha didn't teach us to chase blessings. He taught us to realize our own inner potential, our Buddha nature. And once you start believing in that, truly believing that you carry something sacred within, you begin to shift. Not because the world suddenly becomes easier, but because you stop blocking yourself from receiving the things already reaching out to you. Think about it. How many times have you talked yourself out of something because you thought, "That's not for me"? How many relationships have you tolerated because you didn't believe you could have better? How many times have you stood at the edge of a dream only to step back thinking you weren't ready, weren't smart enough, weren't lucky enough. That's not fate. That's a belief system, and belief systems can be rewritten. Start small, start with how you speak to yourself. Notice when you dismiss a compliment, when you downplay your progress, when you shrink back instead of stepping forward. Bring mindfulness into those moments. Remind yourself that the Buddha taught all beings have the potential for awakening. That includes you. You don't need to become perfect to be deserving. You already are, right now, in this breath. And here's the beauty of it all. The moment you start believing you deserve more, not in an entitled way, but in a deeply grounded, peaceful way, you start acting differently. You say no to things that drain you. You say yes to things that nourish you. You stop settling. You start aligning. And in that alignment, the universe begins to respond in kind. There's something incredibly powerful about being calm in a world that constantly pushes you to move faster, work harder, and always stay one step ahead. We're often taught that unless we're hustling, we're falling behind. That stillness equals laziness. That peace means you're not trying hard enough. But in Buddhist philosophy, the opposite is often true. Calmness is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's a sign that you're no longer fighting against life but flowing with it. And when you reach that state, when your energy becomes still and centered, something beautiful happens. The universe begins to respond. The Buddha taught that suffering arises not from what happens to us, but from our reaction to it. Most of our suffering comes from resistance, resisting what is, resisting what was, resisting what might be. But calmness dissolves that resistance. It softens the sharp edges of life and allows you to meet each moment with clarity rather than chaos. And it's in that clarity that you begin to align with the things you once felt you had to chase. You stop reaching out in desperation and start receiving in ease. The same energy you once poured into overthinking, into worrying, into trying to control every outcome, now flows gently into openness, into awareness, into peace. In Buddhist temples, you'll often notice how calm everything feels. The space, the sounds, the people, all quiet, all intentional. That's not accidental. It's because peace is considered the most fertile ground for awakening. In the same way that a tree grows best in still, nutrient-rich soil, your life begins to flourish when rooted in calmness. Your thoughts settle, your body relaxes, your intuition gets louder. And instead of rushing to make something happen, you begin to notice that the right things, people, ideas, opportunities, naturally find their way to you. Calmness also invites trust. It's your way of saying to the universe, I'm no longer trying to force things. I trust your timing. I trust your process. And the universe, in its quiet wisdom, responds to that trust. It begins to organize life around your stillness. You may not see it immediately, but little by little, things start aligning. You meet the right person at the right moment. You get the clarity you were missing. A door opens that was previously closed, not because you pushed harder, but because you stopped pushing entirely. This doesn't mean you give up effort. It means your effort becomes clean, purposeful, aligned. You do what needs to be done, but from a place of steadiness, not from panic. And that difference in energy is everything. Think of how many times you've made choices out of anxiety, quick decisions, desperate actions, and how often those ended in regret. Now imagine moving from a place of calm, from a deep presence. Those choices tend to be wiser, more grounded, and more aligned with your long-term peace. The Buddha never told us to avoid action. He spoke of right action, action that comes from awareness, from compassion, from clarity. Calmness allows that kind of action to arise. When your mind is still, you see things as they are, not as your fear or impatience paints them to be. And in seeing clearly, you move wisely. You begin to act not to fix, not to force, but to flow. This is where life stops feeling like a struggle and starts feeling like a dance. There's a beautiful strength in a person who can stay calm, especially when life is loud and uncertain. That kind of person becomes magnetic, not because they try to be, but because their energy feels safe, grounded, trustworthy, and whether we realize it or not, we're all drawn to that kind of presence. When you embody that calmness, you're not just inviting the universe to work with you, you're also becoming a safe space for others, a place where life can land gently. There comes a moment when holding on just becomes too heavy. You've tried everything, overthinking, planning every detail, clinging to outcomes, people, timelines. And despite all your effort, you're still stuck in the same emotional loop, asking yourself, why isn't it working? The Buddha didn't promise that life would always be smooth, but he did teach something powerful. Attachment is the root of suffering. And the more we cling to control, to certainty, to how we think life should be, the more we block the very peace we're looking for. What we often don't realize is that the act of holding on too tightly creates tension, not only in our minds, but in our entire energy field. That tension becomes a wall keeping what we desire at a distance. It's not easy to release control. We're taught to fight for what we want, to chase our dreams, to make it happen. But the Buddhist path invites us to a different kind of strength, the strength of surrender. Letting go is not a weakness. It's the courage to trust. Trust that life, in its wisdom, knows the way. Trust that the universe is not working against you, but is trying to guide you, if only you would stop resisting. The more you try to force things, the more you create resistance in your own energy. But when you choose to soften, when you release the need to know exactly how everything will unfold, you begin to invite ease back into your life. Think about how a river flows. It doesn't try to push against the rocks. It moves around them, over them, carving its way slowly but steadily. It trusts the landscape. In the same way, when we stop fighting what is and instead begin to work with it, our lives begin to flow again. Buddha's own journey toward enlightenment began the moment he let go of his princely life, his fixed beliefs, and the illusion that control could bring peace. He walked away from everything familiar, not because he had all the answers, but because he trusted that the truth would meet him along the way. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop suffering over things you cannot change. It means you give up the illusion that you can micromanage your path into peace. Instead of tightening your grip, you open your palms. You say to life, I've done my part. Now I trust you to do the rest. That openness creates space. Space for clarity to arrive, for unexpected blessings to come in, for healing to take place. When your hands are full of fear and control, there's no room for miracles to land. But when your hands are open, even the smallest gift becomes sacred. I've learned this the hard way, and maybe you have too. There are moments when we think we've let go, but deep down we're still holding on to a specific result, a certain validation, or a version of the future that feels safe. But true letting go means trusting even when you don't get what you asked for. It means knowing that what's meant for you won't need to be forced, begged for, or chased. It will flow to you because your energy is no longer resisting it. And sometimes, what you receive instead will be far better than what you thought you needed. In Buddhism, letting go is a lifelong practice. It's not something we do once. It's something we return to again and again. Every time your mind clings, every time fear rises, every time you want to control the outcome, you gently remind yourself, this too I can release. And in that release, you'll begin to notice a quiet shift. You'll feel lighter, freer, more available to the present moment. That's where peace lives. That's where clarity finds you. That's where the universe can finally meet you. When you stop gripping so tightly and simply let go, you don't lose anything. You make room for everything you truly deserve. Peace, love, clarity, abundance, they've been trying to reach you. Now, with open hands and a calm heart, you're finally ready to receive them. Thank you for walking this path with us. If today's message spoke to your soul, There's another video on your screen now that's waiting to meet you where you are. Watch it next. And until we meet again, thank you for being part of Buddhist journey. May your steps be steady, your heart be light, and your spirit always guided by peace.